to bring you an event in Tamil. To start with, it will be leadership lessons from Tirukkural. Then we moved all other ancient scriptures to bring some of the ancient wisdom which at times we miss out and which I thought will be very relevant because we had identified some outstanding speakers on this subject, something like today's subject, again, very relevant today, but not really discussed too many times in public, and that's the reason we got one of the outstanding speakers to speak to you. Then we also have on 22nd of Feb, women on boards, how to increase the presence. This event is online. Aarti Madhusudan will be talking to us. This is a program under Women Business Forum as being organized today. Then on 25th, our flagship event, MMA Annual Convention 2023, India's Century, how to drive sustainable inclusive growth. This is happening at IT Research Park Auditorium. We expect over 1,000 people to attend. We already have more than 400 plus registrations. Please do register, don't disappoint. We have some outstanding speakers, including CEO of Niti Aayog and Arun Maira, Planning Commission member, who's of corporate leaders are there. I suggest come and attend, interact with them. It's a great event. Then March program, I'll skip it for time being. We have program finally till April. But let me also tell you what's our outreach program, which we are doing at different locations in Chennai as a part of the MMA event. 15th of Feb, we have Six Sigma for SCM professionals at Indian Institute of Material Management. Gopal Shivakumar will be talking to us. This is happening at 6 p.m. on 15th of Feb, Wednesday. On Tuesday, 21st of Feb, we have new labor codes at Chengalpattu chapter. Anand Gopalan will be talking to us on this. On Tuesday, 28th Feb, we have a panel discussion on Chat GPT at Gumdi Pundi. Mr. Banu Kumar, founder, is going to be talking. So these are some of the programs I thought, so that I'm giving time for the people who have come here to come and settle down, so that we have a very nice event and we don't want to miss anything in the beginning. Today's topic is management concepts in Indian art heritage. This is a subject which is very dear to us and dear to MMA, because heritage is the one which you have to be really preserved and maintained. I can proudly tell you the heritage and MMA is over 66 years old organization. What the rules and bylaws done 1966 still will continue. We don't change an inch, not because of mindset, but what has been foreseen by our forefathers we maintain. Something similar to that, a lot of lessons which you can learn from heritage. And we have outstanding speaker to come and speak to us and to introduce a thing. We have again a person who is very passionate. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hand together to welcome Dr. Chithra Madhavan, Indian historian, author. And to lead the conversation with we have Dr. Lata, Rajagopalan, Kumar, consultant communication development members, IAICS. May I request Lata and Dr. Chithra to please take your place on the dais. Coming to today's event, as I mentioned to you earlier, the subject is very relevant, management concepts in Indian art and heritage. And this is a program which is being organized by the MMA Women Business Forum. How many of you know that we have an MMA Women Business Forum? They do some phenomenal activities. They have an exclusive page, women's Facebook page, actually only for women, so that they can share. Then we also created a mentor and mentee. So any woman want to mentor, they just go and register. We'll get a matching mentee, or anybody want to be a mentee, they can register. We do that. We do a lot of initiative in this regard, but I can honestly tell you, yes, they take initiative, but not as much as we expect actually, because we wanted many women to come forward and ask for a mentor, many women to come forward to become a mentee who are achievers, so that to this forum, because MMA Women Business Forum does some phenomenal work, and our intention is not only for businesswomen, even for housewife, how we can create an environment where she can keep herself occupied. We do phenomenal amount of work in this regard in our schools. We do a lot of CSR work at different schools. We teach the children who are very poor on all the skills. We teach almost 130 skills where tomorrow the children, they leave out school, or anything happens to them, they'll be able to survive and with the skills. And this is what we do. And in fact, the memento, what we'll be presenting it today, the distinguished speaker, is made by one of the child during this CSR initiatives. Now, what we are decided also in future, the mementos will be given is what is beautifully crafted by these young children as a part of our CSR initiative. Idea is we want to connect with the young thing. That is the reason we did this, and that's the reason MMA Women Business Forum is very active. We do all the activities which are relevant, and if you have time, just visit our YouTube channel and see some of the events what we have done under Women Business Forum, or you just watch our events in the live webcast, or all the things which is recorded in our magazine, all the articles are published. So before I hand over, let me have the privilege of introducing Dr. Lata Rajagopalan Kumar. She is a consultant communication development. She is one of the members of the Women Business Forum. We have other members, they're all from different part of the country, in fact, different part of the world. We have a Women Business Forum member from Hong Kong, we have one from Singapore, we have one from Delhi, Gurgaon, different places. So we all work together today with the way we are linked to the people. So that's one of the reasons we are able to get some outstanding speakers to speak, and some of the things where speakers from Chennai, we do it physically, otherwise most of the events happen online. And she's a PhD in communication from Department of Mass Media Communication Studies from University of Madras. She's also a founder, director of Curious People, they call it C4D. In 1990-91, he was in the advertising industry and handled national accounts of like big companies like Enkel, Kevin Care, TA Cycle, and much more. Written and published number of papers, CSR, marketing and advertising, and she's also very good in sports. Former ranked tennis player and represented Madras University in Tamil Nadu state. And let me have the privilege of presenting to you Dr. Lata Rajagopalan Kumar, to introduce the speaker and take it forward. Over to you, Lata.
Thank you, Captain. I'm always hoping that the introduction will be shorter. Good evening and welcome to this evening session of the Women's Business Forum. Our chairperson is Mrs. Maithili. She's not here with us today. She's in Delhi and she's busy today, but she is the person who's been the driving force behind all our activities. It is under her guidance that we were able to identify our goals, and towards these goals, we have been organizing regular talks. Most of our speakers are women achievers from different fields and people who can motivate and train people. But the topics have always been general interest to men and women. Some of the speakers are from unusual fields. We've had a chef, we've had debaters, we've had people from entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurs, professionals, and we've had people who have been in training and also working for NGOs. And all these women over time have given us valuable insights about building our careers. We hope to encourage women to pursue their careers or further their existing careers, or even make a switch at a later date. We also encourage women who have taken a break to come back, and many of our speakers have agreed to be mentors to encourage these women. And today we have Dr. Chithra. She comes here as a historian, but one of the reasons she's here is because of her unique career choice, and also because she's carved a niche for herself in this field. Dr. Chithra did her master's in history and MPhil from the Department of History in Madras University. She completed her PhD from the Mysore University in the Department of Ancient History and Archaeology. She is the recipient of 2 postdoctorate fellowships, one from the Department of Culture, Government of India, and the other from the Indian Council of Historical Research. Dr. Chithra has authored 8 books, which is no mean task. It is about art, architecture, heritage, culture, and also Sanskrit education and literature. She has written the text, the textual content for a coffee table book called Snapshots of a Bygone Era. This contains over 100 photographs of monuments in India. She has co-edited a book called South India Heritage, which has over 500 articles on Indian art and heritage. She has also she's been the editor of 3 books, very interesting books on 3 temples. One is the temple at Srivilliputtur, the other is the Varadaraja Perumal temple at Kanjipuram, and the third is the Srirangam temple, the famous Srirangam temple. So she has been guest lecturer at various colleges and institutions in India, including the IITs, and she travels across India for this. She has also written over 100 articles for the multi-volume encyclopedia on Hinduism. She is presently a guest lecturer at Kalakshetra, Chennai, the Asian College of Journalism, and at Dakshina Chithra. Chithra has been doing something interesting. She has been conducting and leading heritage walks in Chennai, in India, and also abroad. One of her recent passions, can I say recent, is working with younger generation. She has been lecturing at schools in addition to her other speeches in various forums. She has been talking to school students, and we will come to that when we interact with her. Now, before I hand over the mic to her, she will indulge me, I hope, and we would like to have a short discussion about her choice of career, and then she will go on to the topic today. Thank you very much. No. So without much ado, I would go on to the questions. Chithra, when did you figure you were interested in Indian art and architecture to this extent and the heritage?
Well, you see, first of all, thank you, Lata, and thank you, MMA, for inviting me here this evening. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with all of you and with the virtual audience as well. So, to answer your question, in the 8th standard, I fell in love with history.
Oh.
I had some good history teachers, and initially it was the Egyptian civilization that I thought was very fascinating. And then when I studied about the Indus Valley civilization, I said, oh, this is even more fascinating. And then my parents took me on a South India tour, and I saw the temples in Mysore, Halebid and Belur, and I saw the Srirangam temple here, and I said, this is what I'm going to do.
That's interesting. Since you mentioned school as your earlier, in the time during which you were inspired, did school education play a role in any way? Did you feel the school curriculum played a role in some way?
I'm not sure the curriculum played a role, but some of my history teachers did, for sure.
Okay. This is not, it's not yet a common field for people to pursue the career in. What are the challenges you faced earlier?
The main challenge of taking history or archaeology as a profession would be, what do you do other than teach? So that's the main thing. You go on to do your MA and your MPhil and your PhD, and then it's basically a teaching career. So there are many students who find history a very boring subject in school, and they're waiting to pass their 10th standard to drop this subject. I mean, that everybody knows that. We've all been through it. This is very sad because we have a glorious heritage and culture in India, and this should be one of the most fascinating subjects, but that's not happening. And therefore, since they don't take history at the college level, and even if they do, they're not thinking of it as anything more than a career in teaching. That's about it.
Okay. This job takes you far and wide. You must have traveled to remote places. Have you ever experienced or did you ever feel you were handicapped because of gender or
For sure.
acceptance issues?
Traveling, basically. So some of these monuments are in very remote areas, and we have to take various modes of transport to go there. It's sometimes very lonely, and so I have to take someone with me. It's really not possible, it's not advisable to travel alone. This
are the challenges
this is one main challenge.
Okay. What is the level of encouragement you get at various levels, from institutions, from government, for pursuing this field? What is the level of encouragement available?
Well, you see, I've chosen a freelance career. So I wasn't looking for any encouragement at all. I'm self-motivated. But in this field, like I said, since there aren't too many opportunities, where is the need, or anyway, it doesn't come. There is no question of corporates helping. I haven't seen any corporate support till now.
Okay.
Government, maybe by way of scholarships, fellowships at the state level and central level. Yes, that much, yes, definitely.
Okay. What if somebody became interested in the subject later? For example, I am now interested in history. I watch a lot of programs on Netflix, which are documentary programs, which I now find interesting, which I never did, like you rightly said, at school. So is there any course people like me can do without the need to fulfill university requirements or degree requirements? Are there private courses that help you? I know there's some things on like online courses on Coursera, but in-person courses, do you have any?
It's a good question. I'm not sure India has too many in-person courses for adults who are interested in this subject. There may be some, but the flip side is how many people can give up a career and go and join these courses. If it were online, you could do it in the evenings or over weekends. And if they are recorded, then you can listen to it at any time and then take an exam or an assignment or whatever. Online courses are there, but physical courses, I'm not very sure, unless it's an MA or something like that, or a diploma. But then I do find many people later in life liking a subject which they detested in school, and it's all about the way it's brought to you. Basically, that's what it's all about. Yeah.
So I have now a very important question. What role do you think art heritage plays in society today?
It's again a very good question. It is a very major thing. In India, what happens is, at the school level, we are not taught to be proud of our heritage. We have that many monuments around us. We have a recorded history for at least 5,000 years, but the curriculum and the way it's presented is so drab that no child grows up with an inherent pride in their heritage or in their culture. And this shows at a later date because, I do find people who go to monuments, even educated people, and writing their names with a permanent marker where the original architect or sculptor hadn't even left behind his signature. So these people go and scribble and all these things, not maintaining these spaces properly. All that comes out of a want of pride and heritage. And if that can be instilled at the school level, I think we have our work done.
Okay, I think that's important. What would you say are the main benefits of getting to know about the art heritage? Okay, one is the pride. Is there anything else to learn for students, younger students and children? Since you mentioned you work with children.
For sure. See, this is a subject like any other subject, learning physics or maths. So this also is a subject that will sensitize people. Art is basically something you grew up learning to appreciate the beauty around you. There is so much geometry in our sculptures. There is so much by way of design. Even if you want to become a designer later, whatever, you can connect with all these art objects. Plus, when you travel, whether it's to the east or to west to the other countries, you can find connections from one culture to the other, provided it's taught to you properly.
So, Dr. Chithra, how would you go about, what is your suggestion if somebody wants to take this up as a career? How would they go about it at this point in time? I mean, your path would have been different so many years ago, but what is the possibilities now? How would it work?
For a person to become either a historian or an archaeologist? You can, of course. There are enough institutions offering you BA History, BA Archaeology, and then you can take it from there. Go on to do a master's and then a PhD. But to be very frank, while I would love to see many, many youngsters taking this up as a profession, there aren't enough opportunities. Like I said earlier, you can become a lecturer. And how many slots are there in the Archaeological Survey of India or other places for that many youngsters turning professional? My advice to youngsters, and I sometimes feel bad about having to say this, is if you are really, really interested in history and archaeology, make it a serious hobby.
Okay.
Make it a serious interest. Keep studying it. If you are really interested, you'll find the time, you'll find the energy. You'll definitely do it. And go on to other career choices. Go on to whatever you want to do. But keep this in the background, keep studying it, keep updating yourself. And then at one point of time, maybe in your 40s or early 50s, if you choose to take an early retirement, dive into this.
Great.
This is what I would say, because career opportunities are unfortunately very limited for these subjects in this country.
It's a good pursuit later on, though, right? Definitely.
I would think so.
If you prepare well.
I know enough people from other backgrounds who have written books on this subject, eminent people who are equal to senior archaeologists and historians
Oh, fantastic.
by depth of knowledge.
Oh, that's really nice. At this point, I'd like to mention that Dr. Chithra has agreed to be one of our mentors. So if anybody wants to pursue you, we can arrange for you to talk to her at a later point in time.
Sure.
And as the final question, how do you see this field growing? What can be done at this point to promote?
Several things. Take school children on short field trips to museums, places of heritage in and around the city where they are living. It will make a huge difference, and send them with well-informed people who would make the subject come alive. I promise you that child will get addicted to the subject, and then trying to de-addict him or her will be difficult. Then go on to tell him or her, don't take this up as a profession, but take it up as a serious hobby. It will work. If you keep a child in a classroom and keep teaching political history, this war, this date, mug this up, write it down. For generations in this country, we've grown up hating this subject. And we have to change that. That must be reversed. Field trips are an option. PowerPoint presentations in classroom are another option. So if we do all these things, then definitely a sense of pride. We have a great culture with us, and we need to showcase it to the younger generation, make them aware of what is there around them.
Right. Thank you so much for indulging me, and you notice that I carefully did not ask you any question about the topic you're going to speak about today. I'm going to leave that entirely to you.
Thank you so much, Lata.
Please take over from here. Can I move from here? Yeah, I can see. No, I thought I'm blocking something.
So again, thank you so much, MMA, for inviting me here this evening. So we are going to look at how we can find out about management from our ancient and medieval history. I am first taking you to a place, a very well-known place for historians and archaeologists, but perhaps not so much for others. This is a place called Uttaramerur, which is not too far from Kanchipuram. Uttaramerur is a small village today, and it is famous for this temple for Vishnu over here. But other than that, there is this inscription. It's in Tamil. It's a Chola period inscription that belongs to the 10th century to a king called Parantaka Chola. And in many of the villages of Tamil Nadu, or wherever it is that the Cholas ruled, and even before the Chola times, there were village administrative units. Some of them were called Ur, some of them were called Sabhas. So in this village of Uttaramerur, there was this administrative unit called a Sabha, which consisted of so many people. Now this inscription clearly tells you, you'll be surprised to know, as early as the 10th century, the do's and the don'ts for being selected to be on this prestigious body called the Sabha. It gives age limit, and it tells you that there must be no criminal record against your name. You must have owned a certain amount of property, and this amount of educational qualification should be there. So many do's and so many don'ts, which means that only very eligible people were allowed to be on this Sabha. And there was a mode of selection. I'm not going into the details. It's famously called the Kuda Volai system. Olai, as since you're mostly all Tamil here, Olai is like a palm leaf on which the names were written. It was put in a kodam or a pot, and then the Olais were taken out, and on selection basis it happened. Now the people who were selected and allowed to sit on this Sabha were divided into various committees. So people were put into this committee or that committee or the third or the fourth committee. Now what were these committees all about? They were to take care of village administration, management basically, manage the village. Now every single problem could not go up to the king. Imagine the Chola emperor having to deal with your goat going into the next person's garden and eating up his tulsi plant. That won't happen. So everything was settled at the village level itself, village democracy at its height. So they had something called the Totavariyam, taking care of the totem, basically the orchards, etc. You had something called the Eri Variyam. Areas were the irrigation tanks, ponds, etc. A lot of importance was given to water management, to which I'll come later. So these were the various subcommittees in the Sabha, and management was at its best because people who were interested, people who were allowed to sit on the committee did their best, and the villages were well taken care of. Just like in Uttaramerur, which is very well known for its inscription, during every election in the newspapers you will have something about the Uttaramerur inscription. Not so well known is a similar inscription talking about a Sabha and various committees that come under the Sabha in a place called Ukkal. I by chance had gone there 4 days ago, and this is a dilapidated state of the temple at Ukkal, which once upon a time was a very prosperous village with this prosperous Sabha divided into various committees looking after various matters related to that village. It's sad to see something that has gone down over time. That temple that I showed you now is a Shiva temple called the Vaidyanatha Swami temple. Nearby is this Vishnu temple, Bhuvanamanika Vishnu Alayam, and this is also in a completely dilapidated state. But Chola temples these were, and the Chola inscription there again tells you what kind of perfect management systems were in place in this village. So this inscription in Uttaramerur and that inscription in Ukkal cannot be one-off things. Obviously, it was there across the land, and every village and every town was managed so very beautifully, divided into subcommittees, each group taking care of one aspect of the village or the other, and then when their turn was over, they had to step down, and then a new committee would be in place. I mean, we can't think of anything as good as this even in modern times. I think it was perfect, completely perfect. Today we are talking about water management, water harvesting. We are looking at all these terms, and we think that we in the 20th, 21st centuries are the ones to harvest water, etc. No, not at all. I am now quickly taking you to a small village called Mahendravadi, not too far from where we are. This is near Arakonam. So if you drive down now, you can reach within 2 hours. It's a small village, and as you drive down from the main road and turn onto this mud road, this is what you're going to see. And you'll think that this is just a small rock. It's not just a small rock. In the 7th century, a king called Mahendravarman, after whom this village is named, Mahendravadi, the famous Mahendravarman Pallava, who ruled from his capital Kanchipuram over a vast area of North Tamil Nadu, created this place called Mahendravadi after him. It is now, this monument that I'm going to show you is under the care of the Archaeological Survey of India, which means it's a protected monument of national importance. Just that little rock sitting here. And this little boulder was turned into a cave temple for Vishnu. This was actually a temple, not so now, but it was once upon a time. I'm showing it to you from various angles, as simple a structure as it can get. And on one of the pillars here, like this, one of these pillars, you have an inscription over here. The language is Sanskritam, and the script is a script that was used for writing this language in Tamil Nadu, which is called Grantha. So this inscription basically tells you that this place was named after Mahendravarman. This temple was called Mahendra Vishnu Griham, the Vishnu house named after Mahendra, and that, coming to the topic of this evening, there was nearby something called a Mahendra Tataka. Tataka in Sanskrit means a tank or a lake. Now, you just look around this way and that, you don't see a Mahendra Tataka, but you walk down the road and you see this. And this was where a huge, huge irrigation tank, miles long and miles broad, was created by King Mahendravarman Pallava. This was an irrigation tank. You can't see the other end from here. It just keeps going. And this lake, it's not natural, artificial area or a lake or a tank was created by Mahendravarman to help the villages all around, which were all into agriculture basically, and that was the backbone of the economy. So you see, in this part of India, you have to look at the sky and wait for the rains. What if the monsoons failed the Pallavas on successive occasions? You had to have water. So this was the kind of lake that was created, and again, this wasn't the only one. There were so many created across the Pallava land and to the south of Tamil Nadu, in the Pandya land, everywhere in India. The kings saw to it that such huge, huge irrigation tanks were created for storing monsoon water. Talk about water harvesting. So how were they going to manage this? I mean, you've created something miles broad and miles long. How were you going to manage this? So this called for special management skills. They had inlets. From catchment areas, the water would come gushing through those inlets, above the ground or below the ground, into these tanks. Temple tanks also, basically for water harvesting. And then suppose there was excessive rain, you had a long monsoon season, heavy rains, and this thing started to brim, and then would it come into the village and it would flood all the villages? So that shouldn't happen. So at one point they would have what is called outlets, and all the excess water would go out through the outlet. But where would it go? Where are you going to let it go? That outlet would lead to another irrigation tank or a temple tank at a slightly lower level. Now when that got filled, that outlet would lead to another tank at another lower level, and all of these were finally full. Very little water would be let out into the parched land or into a river or into the sea. So this is management, water management at a very high level. Now, if you let a temple tank or an irrigation tank be just like that, you're going to run into problems because you had to desilt it. Silt will form and then the level will keep rising. So desilting is a very, very important thing. So they employed locals. That was what the Variyam or the tank committee was for. They used to desilt these places. Now, where will you get the money to desilt it? Where would the Sabha collect the money? This Variyam was to look after its own affairs. So you had to make arrangement for income. So what they used to do was lease these tanks to fishermen. And the fishermen used to fish and pay a certain tax to the committee for fishing over there. That tax was used for desilting, cleaning, etc. Talk about management. They had it all perfect. They perfected it. It's just that we don't know about it. And then look at what has happened to this Mahendra Tataka. It's run dry because we've gone and sealed the inlets. We don't know what the inlet is for. We don't know what the outlet is for. And this picture says it all. When it rains, a boat is taken And more often than not, this two-wheeler is taken because it's so dry. It's very unfortunate. So as far as the eye can see was this Mahendra Tataka, now completely gone to seed. I know I'm running out of time, so I'm quickly going to take you to this UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's called Gangai Konda Cholapuram. Many of you may know about it, may have been there. And this was created by this Emperor Rajendra Chola in the 11th century. Not many people who go to this temple know that hardly a kilometer and a half from here is one of the largest irrigation tanks ever created by Rajendra Chola. Today it's called Ponneri, perhaps the largest irrigation tank created, and it was originally called Chola Gangam. Basically, why I'm showing you all these is because water management was at a very, very high level. Taking you to a place called Mannargudi. This is one of the larger Vishnu temples in Tamil Nadu. It is for Krishna, Rajagopalan Swami. Look at the temple tank over here. Again, the same thing of desilting and inlets and outlets. We think of a temple tank only as a religious place where people have their bath before going into the temple, etc. We can also think of it as water management. Great management skills were there. And at times people have even dropped their gunny bagfuls of money there, and then it was recovered. Same thing of Thiruvarur also. There is a famous saying, Kovil Padi Kulam Padi, where the temple is the same size as the tank is the same size as the temple. So water management was perfect as far as ancient and medieval India is concerned. Unfortunately, at one point of time, perhaps when the colonial rulers were here, we forgot about these techniques of management that were there. And I think we have ourselves to blame, and the net result is there, water scarcity, this, that. Talking about queens who were very good at management, there was Queen Rudramba of the Kakatiya dynasty in present-day Andhra, Telangana area. And her father, who had no sons, made Rudramba his successor by a male named Rudradeva and associated her with the governance. Now, if you say there are inscriptions talking about Queen Rudramba as a great administrator, management skills, etc., nobody is going to buy it in India. So I'm quoting Marco Polo, who came all the way from Venice, and he says that he has praised her administrative qualities. He says one of the greatest administrators he had ever seen was Rudramba. So there were women also who headed administration, and there was lots of trade as far as the Kakatiya kingdom is concerned. Lots of other women like that whose names we actually don't know. Quickly taking you to a place called Rani Ki Vav. This is in North India. I've been talking about South all along, so let's go to Gujarat. And this is a brilliant step tank. Step well. So this is how it is when you go there. It's at ground level, and slowly this is also completely about water management. See, agriculture was the backbone of the economy, trade as well. Trade management was also there. You had guilds, every kind of management skill was there as far as trade is concerned. But because agriculture was of paramount importance, I am paying attention to water management, nothing else. So in the north, you had step wells, step tanks like this. The best example of which is Rani Ki Vav, which is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So you keep going down mantapa after mantapa after mantapa, and when the water level rose, many of these mantapas would be covered with water. Why did they create such extensive spaces and beautify them so much? And incidentally, before I forget, most of these step wells in Gujarat and in Rajasthan were created by women, royal women. So you see, they also had a lot of management skills. The reason this one, Adalaj Vav, was in 1499, 15th century, by a lady named Rudabai. When caravans traveled across the country, they needed places to stay. The pack animals had to be fed, they had to be washed, they had to have water to drink. And when they parked themselves near these step wells, you had all of these aplenty. So this is Adalaj Vav in Gujarat, and you keep going See all this beauty, and then you keep going down and down and down. And it's like sitting in an air-conditioned room, even in the middle of summer. So you had all these facilities ready for you. So again and again, I'm insisting on water management. That was beautifully done. And this is the bottommost part of the Adalaj Vav, where there is a well. Coming back to Tamil Nadu, I'm only showcasing this temple because it's well known to all of you. We see structures and structures, temples and temples in India. Think of the kind of administrative ability a king or his ministers, or whoever it was in charge of this monument or any monument like this, had to have to get this in place. First of all, where was the stone to come from? If it was near you, okay. If it was far away, you had to get people to quarry that stone first. You select people, they go there, quarry, and you had to, these were not slaves, no way. These were paid people who were employees. You had to know how much to give them. You had to select the right people. Once the stones were quarried, they had to be transported. Now, what kind of transport? Men could push, pull. You had to have trained elephants, so you had to have mahouts. You also have to have had a lot of blacksmiths, because you have to have tools to actually take the rock out. And ever so often, those tools would become blunt. They had to be sharpened. So a whole army of blacksmiths would have to be there. And then you transport it to that place. And then you have to put stone upon stone. That calls for a lot of administrative skills. How many stones you had to count. You had to get the architects to put one upon the other. Sculptors had to be there. They had to be fed. So a whole lot of ration supplies have to be there. Pack animals as well. Sand supplies to build the ramp on which the stones had to be pushed up. Just think about it. It's simply mind-blowing to build a structure of this proportion, to get it in place. Thousands and thousands of laborers, skilled and unskilled, plenty of architects, chief architects and those working under him, so many sculptors, construction workers. And then once a temple comes into place, can you imagine the amount of management that must happen in a temple? Today, it's only a place of worship, a temple. Those days, it was a religious institution, it was a bank, it was like a panchayat. All the mantapams were used for various activities, and there had to be an entire team that was looking after the management of a temple and the different uses to which it was put. You had to procure new manuscripts for the library. There was an education institution, not just the Vedas. Ancillary subjects, grammar, logic, all the other things were taught. You had to get the teachers in, salaries given to the teachers, fellowship, endowments given to the students, all of that. Great. We don't realize all of that now. We see a monument, or we look at it, a nice stone structure, take a photograph, take a selfie and come out. But no, management was at its height. And you can understand all of that from the inscriptions that are there. Not only in Uttarameru, not only Ukal, in this temple, various other temples, we just have to go in that little bit, pierce in, and we'll find out that India was a country in ancient and medieval times where this word management, administration, those words were not there. It was just in practice, completely and totally, and absolutely mind-blowing once you get into the nitty-gritty of it. I think I've exceeded my time, and so it's every little temple that you go to, every other monument that you go to, that you can get so much about management skills, right from the lowest level, village administration, right up to the emperor, wherever he was sitting. It was completely about management. Land management, measurements, up to the smallest detail is given. When a king was donating some land, perhaps to a scholar or perhaps to a religious institution, to a group of people in some other village, small measurements are also given in our inscriptions. The rod with which it had to be measured is also something down to the minutest detail. So everything is there from our literature, from our inscriptions, and from the structures itself you can understand. Look at the geometry in this Gopuram that you see. Great engineers, great people who knew their geometry, people who knew their engineering, people who knew their sculpture, all of them. The word Shastra is actually science. Science of everything, including science of management. So thank you. Thank you very much.
That was mind-blowing, as you rightly said. I think it's fascinating to know that we have such a rich heritage, not only in culture, but in science, in architecture, in management, in everything. And as you rightly said, I think all those structures are examples of how administrative skills have to be at the peak. I can't even think of questions to ask, but I'm still reeling from the impact of the information that you've given. But I have just one query. Can you guide us as to how to identify places to go to and discover these things?
Yes, there are enough books on various dynasties and history books in general, but they are tomes, people would not want to wade through them to understand. Perhaps to talk to archaeologists and epigraphists, people who study inscriptions, and get some information from them, and then go to these places.
And just one more thing, that you were talking about the queens with administrative skills.
Yes.
So are there evidences of the way in which queens governed? I mean, a team or
Okay.
divided portfolio?
In India, we really don't have too many queens who ruled. We have had royal women who have donated considerably to various causes, to not only to religion, but also to medicine and various other institutions as well. But Rani Rudraamba and a few other queens from other dynasties like the Hoysalas, etc. in Karnataka, they ruled over smaller areas. Sometimes they assisted their husbands. Okay. And one princess of the Vijayanagara dynasty named Ganga Devi went with her husband Kumar on a military campaign itself. So you've had those kind of queens. But for a person from outside like Marco Polo, who had traveled to various places, to have come into India, seen Rani Rudraamba and commented on her great management skills, administrative skills, is, I think, something that's heartwarming.
To be proud about.
Very proud about.
And also the curious fact that a temple is also a seat of financial power and
Yes.
treasury and the bank. It's also.
Yes. In fact, people deposited money in a temple and they got interest paid by the temple. Okay. Management.
Right. Captain, are there any questions?
Thank you, madam. It's a fascinating evening. So much of knowledge about insights, about heritage. We have more than 400 people are watching this online today. And first privilege is to people who have come in person to ask questions. Please be brief and relevant to that thing. Tell your name and ask your question.
Madam,
please go ahead.
Hello? Yeah. My question to you, what is your insights on Srivilliputturu Andal temple? You had said you had done some innovations.
Yes, it's on the Srivilliputturu, fascinating temple. And like many others in South India, especially in Tamil Nadu, it has evolved architecturally over time. It doesn't belong to any one dynasty or to any one king or to any one era. Various parts of the temple have been constructed over a very, very, very long period. So, and of course, connected with Andal and her father, Periyalvar. Lots of inscriptions in that temple, standing testimony to its antiquity.
Yeah, I think in Srirangam temple they have some detailed document called the Koil Uruk. So where even what is the procedure, what to cook on a particular day. I think some detailed account is there. So can common man access such kind of document? Is that available?
That Koil Uruk is very much in print. It's there. So people, you can actually buy the book and read it. Only thing, the language may be a little terse for the common man to follow. The Koil Uruk, as he said, is a document of the Srirangam temple giving its history from the very earliest times down to late medieval times. It's all there. In fact, there are, and thank you for bringing the Srirangam temple into focus. There are inscriptions there that talk about flood management. How the Kaveri overflowed its banks and came into the town, and how some people took the initiative to divert the water. It's all about flood management. It's there.
Go ahead.
My name is Ganesh. I have attended quite a few programs at Tattwaloka. You have done a lot of programs, I know. And my main question is as what you are telling about the Indian heritage and this culture. Do we present day schools and college curriculum has got this kind of a heritage and this one given rather than the old history, what we studied during our time, which was nothing was there. Whether the present day, at least the awareness and everything, is it being introduced so that the people know more about the our rich heritage?
I'm afraid not. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think anything is being done to promote heritage awareness in schools and colleges. History is pretty much taught, to the best of my knowledge, and I'd like to be corrected if I am wrong, pretty much taught the way it was, which is why students detest this lovely subject. How can a country with 5,000 years of glorious history, how can that subject be made boring? I mean, we've done it, and hats off to us for having done that. There has to be a huge change in the creation of the syllabus and in the way the subject is taught. Whether students become professional historians or archaeologists is another matter altogether, but that this subject should be given to them in a very interesting way. It's sad it isn't.
Anybody else, please? Okay, we have got number of questions online. We'll try and accommodate next 10 minutes as many questions as possible. Here is the first question to you, madam. And madam, you mentioned about Vararaja temple from Kanchipuram in your speech, and you did some research there. And you know that Ativaradar thing was happening there once in 40 years. Do you think that India could have handled it much better to attract the large number of followers from all around the world, not only to know about ancient Indian culture and heritage, but also bring India to the world map of some of the practices which is never seen in any part of the world?
Whether we could have
Ativarda,
yeah,
we could have brought in such a visual impact all over the world to showcase India. It's only the local people went and visited, and so much of chaos there otherwise.
Yeah, with the kind of media we have today and social media as well, certainly we could have done that. I mean, it's not very often that you have an ancient deity being kept in a tank and taken out only once in so many years. Yeah, again, it boils down to the fact that we don't have that much pride in our heritage and culture, and that it becomes only a local event when it could have become, something much, much more than that. My focus is only this. If children in school are taught, a certain sense of pride is instilled in a child, everything else will change around, including keeping premises clean. Everything will happen, it will fall in place. I've thought long and hard about this, and this is the conclusion I've come to.
Great, but actually because some of the international organizations, they'll start planning almost 20-25 years. I know Queen coronation they'll do. Something like that, you should say D-40 and keep planning for next 40 years, nothing other than what will be there. I mean,
I hope
it's easy to say, but Professor Ravi, the question is from again Kadalo. Want to know, madam, you mentioned the school teacher ignited your interest in towards history. Could you please share your experience in the school, which could be useful to many of the teachers like us and also the students, to create insight not only for the students but also for the teachers to teach history properly?
Okay, so those were the days when we didn't have PPTs, we had nothing. So just by painting a word picture of the different dynasties that we were studying about, some teachers really made history come alive. They used to, draw a timeline between what was happening in India at that time and in various other parts of the world, so that you could connect. And then they would connect it to local history also, so that you would know what was happening at that time. It was, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have anything that we could go to. It's only a history textbook and the teacher. That's all we had. But between that, they made it very, very interesting. And if that could happen that many years ago, with all the facilities we have today, it can be made far more interesting for students.
Agreement. We'll come and take your tips because we do quite a bit of work with the schools CSI initiative. Let's see how we could really kindle the interest of students on history.
Where
Otherwise,
there is a
they're all
will, there is a
working.
way. It can be done.
Lovely, madam. Here is a question from Mr. Gurunathan. He says, madam, today the tanks and lakes are encroached, which is a serious impact on environment. And you mentioned so much how the kings have taken so much of effort. But during the Chola regime, how the king ensured no encroachment took place? Is there any lessons he left for our present administrator to follow, madam?
So the king didn't do it. It was the local administration that did it. You see, local management, local administration, the Sabha ensured the Eri Variam, that is the committee that was in charge of these ponds and lakes and tanks, ensured that nothing happened to them, that they were safeguarded. It happened at the local level.
But because today we also have a very effective local administration, panchayat level.
Yes.
But still, in spite of that, why encroachment happens is really a serious issue today. Maybe various other reasons, which I don't think.
We need to take clues from ancient management systems.
Yes, yes. Madam, again, this question relevant to the school, only Srinivasan from one of the schools. Many students are watching this program, madam. Could you please share with us what's a career opportunity for students in heritage? And how could they pursue this to take the knowledge, not only the knowledge next level, but also Indian heritage and culture next level to reach the world?
So tourism management
You
is...
mentioned this in your thing.
Yeah, the options are, if you really do want to study history and do not want to become a lecturer, you can go into tourism. That's a very booming industry. Tourism management, etc. That's an option for sure. So that you are in this subject and then you're doing something hands-on as well.
Here is again a question from Mr. Rajagopalan from Coimbatore. Madam, India has a rich heritage and culture. How can we project the wealth of heritage and to the world as an opportunity to attract a large number of visitors and also showcase what we have to the world, which is a great source of income in many of the countries around the world, especially Europe?
Definitely. The tourism potential in India is very great. The potential is there. What we need to, several things we need to do. One is connectivity to get to these places. The second thing is to put some basic infrastructure in place. Clean places to stay, clean restrooms, etc. near these monuments, which is unfortunately lacking. And which is why many visitors from inside India and from abroad are actually not coming. It's because of the hygiene level that is phenomenally poor. I can tell you about places in India which many people don't know. This being my profession, we go into nooks and corners. There are such gems by forts, etc., whatever, any structure, any monument, step tanks, step wells, name it, you have it all. It's just that access is so difficult, whichever by road or any other way, places of stay, every facility is lacking. Now, how can we bring people in if it's going to be like this? We need to improve on all this and then advertise. People will come, for sure.
Good, ma'am. Here's an interesting question. Yes, from Mr. Alex from Chennai. He said, Madam, great management guru Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Did you know ancient scriptures, did you find a similar statement by any of the kings or queens, how they could preserve the culture?
How they?
How could they preserve the culture of the organization without it getting diluted or getting impacted by the other activity?
Oh, how the kings preserve...
Ensure the culture is preserved. Because this is a statement which is very popularly used in management thing. That Peter Drucker said, yes, culture eats strategy for breakfast. They say that, but
So,
in ancient wisdom, the kings are, whatever the ancient thoughts given, they were able to avoid such a situation.
clearly by giving endowments. So you had poets across the land and they were compensated with a lot of money. They were given land endowments so they could sit back and do what they could do best, and knowing that the money would come. And if you're going after your everyday bread, then there's no way you can be creative. So for that creativity to happen, for scholars to be able to teach uninhibited, land grants were made. Grants of money were made. These were like fellowships or scholarships that are being given today. So were the performing artists. So take, for example, the Tanjavur big temple, the picture of which I showed you. So Rajaraja Chola ensured that there were 400 ladies who were employed in that temple. Many of them would be dancers, many of them would be musicians. The salary is paid to them. All the details, they were treated with great respect. They were given titles. You had Natuanars, that is people who could teach and who could accompany the dancers. The number of musicians, that's mind-blowing, the number of musical instruments that were played. Now, why has all that dwindled? Because of lack of sponsorship, because of lack of support. So a temple was a place which was a place for performing artists. On a daily basis, music and dance were part of the temple. Chanting was also there. And all these people were employees of the temple. That's what calls for administration and management. Once that fell into disrepair, all these people vanished from the temple premises. And that art suffered. So the kings ensured that all this was in place.
Gender balance in employment?
I'm not sure whether there was gender balance in employment. Maybe as far as management was concerned, there could have been. Maybe ladies were not in charge of administration. But as far as the performing artists were concerned, yes, there were many ladies. We have their names, not only in the Tanjavur temple, but in many other temples as well.
Great, madam. A lot of women empowerment happened. One last question from Mr. Ramchandran. He says, the temples in the present days are very, very high in significance in terms of heritage. They are all in very, very bad shape, bad conditions, very badly maintained, some of the pictures which we could see from your presentation. How can we overcome to maintain this high heritage to showcase to the world that what we richly preserve and talk quite a lot about it?
Again, we'll go back to what the ancients did. Give it to the locals to manage. This is yours. This is your pride. This is your heritage. Give it to the locals. Instill a sense of pride in them. Let all the local things be taken care of at the grassroots level itself. It will happen. Once that encouragement is given to them, and once the support is, monetary support is also given to them, there's a lot they can do. Once you revive a well or tank, why can't you go back to putting tax on the fishermen? Go back to what strategy they followed in those times. Get the fishermen to pay a tax, use the tax for cleaning the tank, everything will fall into place. Or maybe I'm an idealist and I'm thinking of all these things. I don't know how it works at the grassroots level, but it'll be good to give it a shot and see how ancient management techniques work in modern times.
Brilliant, madam. I remember I was posted to Jodhpur as a flying officer. This is one of the old king's thing was our officers' mess. Every room window had the water connection from the tank with drip, and where you to put a cuscus onto the window. And you'll be surprised during summers, the rooms will be so cool and so nice actually because of the breeze which come, and we never used air conditioners or water coolers, and they are fantastic actually. What a saved so much of power. 24 hours, no power cut, no breakdown, all that. I mean, phenomenal things happen. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hand together to thank Dr. Chithra Madhavan for sharing great insights. You want a question, sir? Question time is over, but says, as a special case, we permit you. We already crossed the time.
I have heard that second plateau is sloping from the western part to the eastern part. Over the history, is it a fact that water flowing down the gradient was stored at various levels by the various kingdoms in such a way that they rebuilt the groundwater?
Recharge.
It's very likely that this happened because I think the policy of kings was to help agriculturalists as much as possible. and as much rainwater as could be saved was saved. This gradient, I do not know about it particularly from the Deccan area, but it has worked throughout India. So level after level after level of tanks or lakes or whatever, and all that water would be stored level after level. Very little was allowed to go waste because they needed it. They knew that irrigation was vital, and they did all they could to provide that support to agriculturalists. Undoubtedly, yes.
Great. Thank you, madam. I think we come to the end of the session. And as I mentioned to you earlier, we're doing a lot of CSR work where we teach a lot of entrepreneurial skills to young entrepreneur skills. And some of the items made by the children were so fascinating. We thought we must give our speakers the labor of love given by all the children at the school as a memento, as one such is what we are going to give it today. May I request Lata, please step forward. Presenting memento, please come forward. Come. These are made by children. Painted. Would you like to take them first? For children, they will know. This is also, we have forgotten objective item which we will be now giving it to the rather than. Oh, nothing, no. Yes, answer. It's all done with children. School did that all. Oh, I see. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks all the viewers who watch this program, sending some lovely questions. And till we meet again, see you on Monday. Monday is again interesting event, some outstanding thought leader, different subject, different concept. And thanks, you are the adrenaline which pumps us to bring the best in us. See you on Monday. Till then, bye-bye. Good night.